They got so freaked out that they sold the ranch. And who they sold the ranch to but Robert Bigelow. Now here's the UFO connection. Robert Bigelow owns Bigelow Aerospace. Robert Bigelow back in the 1990s also had an institute called the National Institute of Discovery Science, where he was researching into the paranormal. He had his own team of researchers. What they did is they even set up an encampment out at Skinwalker Ranch, of where they put up barricades. They blocked it off so people could get in, because it was becoming more, people were becoming more aware of it by the internet. And people were going out there like ghost hunters and different ones trying to get on the ranch. Well, they set up blockades. They were not specific in what type of instruments they set up, but they were setting up instruments in an attempt to, identify what these activities were that were going on. And he owned this ranch for a number of years. Also, this is the same individual who got money from the government for UFO research through the program called ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And even before it was called ATIP, it was actually another name relating back to weapons, but some of the monies were being used to investigate the paranormal. And the reason they changed the name over to ATIP, the way I understand it, was because it was getting out that money was being spent to investigate paranormal. And they thought, we don't want the public to know that we're paying money for ghost hunters, basically. So they changed the name of the program. Well, Bigelow ran this program. He's never really released what his teams have uncovered, which I've always wondered. I mean, if he had the ranch for, let's say, 8 to 10 years, and you're out there with, let's say, camera systems put up, you're out there with individuals, let's say even just security people on the grounds. Those security people, if there's as much unusual activity as what they're talking about, they had to see things. They had to experience things. Well, then all of a sudden, it comes out that the ranch was now sold. Initially, they didn't say who it was other than just a shell company's name. And it came out back in March of this year that the individual who bought it, his name is Brandon Fugel, who's a Utah real estate tycoon. He went back. They also put up barricades, but then he started doing his own research into that area. He's got much more aggressive. And the thing I wondered, Barbara, is, compared to what was seen on TV the other night, what did they really do behind the scenes, that they're not talking about because maybe they think that it may be boring and so forth on there, that the public may not be interested. Well, they showed a control room that they put up. And in their control room, I saw the monitors that they had.
Right.
And when I do my research, one thing I want to do is I want to eliminate the known. Let's get rid of the known things right away. And let's look at things from multiple avenues. Let's just don't say, okay, it doesn't look like it's an airplane, and let's eliminate everything else. Don't look at anything else. They're looking at all the different areas because they want to really scrub down and get data. Well, on the monitors, one of the things they had was a system where they're monitoring flight traffic. One of the things I do is there's a website called Flight Radar 24 that allows me to have access to aircraft with transponders. I've got a system in my office. I can pull up historical documents regarding flight paths going back to 2 years. And that's what I was doing on there, Henry, when earlier, right at the beginning of the show, the witness that told me he had an experience in southern Ohio, I was going back and pulling up flight data for that region of the state and see what was flying over that region. The disadvantage about that, though, is some stuff is filtered out. For example, like military. I have a receiver in my office that I can pick up signals from aircraft of certain frequencies that have transponders of certain frequencies. I can pick those up, and when the signal leaves my house, basically, it can be filtered out. by the organizations putting it on the internet. So they can say, okay, let's let them see commercial air traffic, but they can't see military. Well, what they did on Skinwalker Ranch, the group that they put up the command center, is their system doesn't rely on that. They've got their own receivers, and they're monitoring the same bands that most air traffic uses. And that goes back to commercial, private, and military. They're monitoring all of that as much as possible. So they're monitoring unfiltered information, which is good. I like that aspect of what they're doing. The other thing they've got is they're monitoring radio frequencies in the area. I don't know about you, Barbara. When I was watching the show the other day, I saw them walking around with meters. And like I do, the different paranormal shows show people walking around with different meters, and they say, look, I got red lights. But what does it mean? What do the red lights really mean other than normally you think of, uh-oh? Well, they're talking about getting signals, like radio signals.
Right.
And that some of these signals, they said, were intense enough to potentially cause damage.
Right.
Well, the thing that they didn't tell me is, okay, tell me what frequencies all these signals are coming in on. Because when you see different frequencies, you may be able to associate with them with different things in the region. This is one of the things that they were, to me, missing. They weren't telling us that, but then again, that might have bored most people out there, so other than me. But it would have told me, do they have some sort of transmitters in the area? Now, it is a more remote area, but south of where they're at, there are a lot of oil wells. And maybe they've got transmitters around that region transmitting stuff back on a periodic basis. That's not a regular set time frame. It just transmits periodically that they may be picking up. But I'd like to know more about that, what frequencies they were. But there's some other things they had, like they had their cameras set up that have live feeds from all over the place. And the way they sounded, Bigelow didn't have anything like that set up. Their control room was way beyond what he had. So here the control room is monitoring on camera different areas of that ranch, and it's roughly about a 550-acre ranch. So what they look at is if they get, let's say, a radio signal spike, one of the things they looked at is the frequency, and one of the comments I saw was one of the signals they got wasn't just over like a narrow width. It was actually over a very, very broad width of frequencies that was unusual. And when they saw this spike, the thing they also wanted to look for is, okay, can they determine what direction that signal's coming from? Are they picking the information up on cameras at the same time? And, let's look at this thing from multiple areas to see if we can isolate, this thing. Let's see if we can get like 2 or 3 different ways of data confirming that something happened. I like that aspect of what they're doing. Now, the one thing that got me, though, and I wanted to be with them, by the way. I wanted to go out there. And if they're listening, by the way, you can get my phone number from Henry. Give me a call.
I would do that only if I get to go.
Coronavirus situation. What's that?
I said I would do that only if I get to go.
Yeah. And did this whole coronavirus situation, I'm willing to travel. and I'd even consider driving out because gas prices are so cheap right now.
Yes.
And I'd even pay for the gas. But one of the things that got me, though, is when they're talking about these frequencies and the unusual activities, like on one of the episodes, the second episode, they had their meters out and they're looking for not only radio frequencies, but they're also looking for magnetic effects.
Right.
That's another area that we look for also, by the way, in UFOs, is their magnetic activity. And one of the individuals who's doing a lot of research in this area, his name is Fran Ridge. He was with NICAP, which is an older UFO organization. One of the things he's been developing for years is basically it's a UFO detector. And I remember back in the early days, like when I saw these things like in the 1960s, coming out. They were looking for magnetic activities, but he's taken that to a much higher level now, where he's using a little device called, basically it's a BlackBerry Pi, which is a little small computer that you can get for like $30-some, something like that. I've got some myself. And you can attach instruments to this. And what he's done is they've got software written that it looks for magnetic anomalies in a region. So if it detects magnetic anomalies, what they do is they say, okay, let's compare data now. We've got magnetic anomalies we're picking up here. Are people seeing UFOs in the same region? So let's see if they correlate. And then if you've got also more of these units, and the idea is they want to put a lot more of these units out there. Now you can triangulate things because, okay, this one picks up a strong signal, this one's a little bit weaker. Okay, this one picks up a signal strength up here. So you can more identify where exactly this magnetic anomaly is coming from. And then go back and compare it to reports again. Well, when I see Skinwalker Ranch, they're going out there also with basically EMF detectors, looking for changes in magnetic frequency. One of the areas that they were checking out was, it was almost like, I don't want to say a cave, but it was basically, you're looking down into not a pit, but I guess best term is like a cave-like structure, straight down in. It was enough to house like 3 to 4 people. And one of the individuals involved, he gets down in there and he starts feeling lightheaded. He starts feeling out of sorts, and they get him out of there right away. Because there's been reports on Skinwalker Ranch of effects like this in certain regions. One of the individuals that is on the ranch a lot more developed basically like water on the brain, basically water between the skin and the skull. And it started swelling way up, and they had to hospitalize him at one time. Mm-hmm. So, checking out the connection. Can there be a connection? That's why, like you, Henry, I'd like to go out there and find out.
But it was interesting, at the same time that he was having those effects, nobody was reading anything. The air was fine. There was no electromagnetic field that they could detect. There was no radiation that they could detect. It was just him feeling weak in the knees and shaky.
Well, and this is where, you're looking for that correlating information. But the thing is maybe what's affecting him isn't related to any or all the above. Maybe it's on a different, or it's directed, because, and this is what was crazy, Barbara. I was sitting in my living room the other night watching that. And, we've talked in the past about my own experiences on there and how I've had these feelings on certain events. When I do certain cases, sometimes I have this feeling before I even really start talking to the witness that something happened. I've had situations where I've been able to see what happened to the witness before they even describe it. And this is the scary part. I'm seeing everything in my mind that they described later on. I mean, they didn't write anything down in text earlier. These are things that they went off and described in much more detail than what was in their report. And I've seen all that before they even described it. When I was watching the show the other night, I had a similar feeling before he even got down in there. I said, he's going to get down in there. I just feel something unusual is going to happen to him. And I just had this sense running through my body that something was off about that area. I don't know what it was, because that hole that he climbed down into, he also said it had an opening going much deeper down underground. Right. They could feel air coming out of it. Now, they said that they couldn't detect like a loss of oxygen that would be associated to the lightheadedness, but who knows what else could be coming out.
And they also said that the air was almost air conditioned.
Right.
Which I found really interesting.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, to me, that really got me interested when we're down in that area. And I really want to check that. I was really trying to vision myself walking around that ranch